We've got time, but I'm going to start and then inshallah Ilham can take over. So, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for all of you who have joined us, either it's your first time or your second, third, or fourth time. Alhamdulillah, this is our fourth webinar in our mental health series. And it's a bit sad because it's our last one of this webinar. However, we have got some great news for you. So stick around. After Ilham finishes her presentation, inshallah, we've got some really good news for you. And then we'll have a Q&A after. So let me just talk a bit about ourselves. So we are Global Relief Trust. And Global Relief Trust is the UK's fastest growing Muslim charity working across the world to provide vital aid for the most needed. Alhamdulillah, reason we are the most fastest growing Muslim charity is we have our own teams on the field in the different countries we work in, which cuts out the middleman and any additional expenses. So we have field managers, we have managers and everything in the cities we work in and in the projects we work in. Some of the big charities, alhamdulillah, work through GRT to deliver projects, and we have a very robust systems and a 16-step program cycle. It's very robust, it's very critically analyzed, and we make sure that all the monies are spent to the maximum potential. So anything you donate, from the penny to the pound to the 100, it is scrutinized and make sure that every penny is spent in the best way possible. Alhamdulillah, GRT, we have a team of sisters, alhamdulillah, who are part of senior management as well as on the other levels. Because most charities, Muslim charities, let's face it, are men-led. Alhamdulillah, GRT are very visionary. So we have women in the senior management and trustees also, to make sure that we can bring projects to you in the UK as mental health and other exciting projects, which we'll have more information about coming soon, inshallah. And yeah, that is who GRT is, and we will be posting on the chat who GRT is, so you'll have a more insight on us. So please visit us on our social media and on our website. So Quranic Insight. Who are Quranic Insights? Well, Quranic Insight is an online organization, and it provides free courses. Alhamdulillah, 3 years ago, I came across Quranic Insight, and then I came across GRT, and now I'm kind of supporting and working for both of them. They do absolutely amazing Tajweed free courses. That's where I picked up my Tajweed, with absolutely beautiful, beautiful ustadas and teachers who actually meet you at your level. And if you're anything like me, I get PTSD with Tajweed. This actually has brought my barrier in learning, and I want to learn more. So our main courses are 1 month intense Tajweed courses. It's very, very popular, alhamdulillah. Thousands of students worldwide, honestly. So take a look at Quranic Insight. Also have other workshops and webinars on topics like mental health, and the partnership with GRT on a regular basis. QI is somewhat of a branch that focuses on educational aspects, primarily Islamic education, and alhamdulillah, with Quranic Insight and GRT partnering, we have completed a lot of projects together, focused on the many aspects of humanitarian aid, education, and set up Hifz schools across our project in Syria, in refugee camps, and orphan and displaced people. And inshallah, this year we're doing the same in Yemen. We believe, yes, food and basic necessities have to be met, but we also believe education and Islamic knowledge has to be spread also, inshallah. But we want to branch out more, but we can't do it without you. The public, your duas and your donation is definitely to keep us going, doing these amazing, amazing projects. So by supporting QI, Quranic Insight, and Global Relief Trust, alhamdulillah, you can support this by doing amazing projects and more, and which you'll hear about more soon, inshallah. Now, without further ado, let me put my screen up. I'm gonna pass it on to our absolutely beautiful Ilham, who is taking the webinar today. I'm going to let her introduce herself to you, and then I will see you guys in a little while. Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakallah Samin. Salam alaikum everyone, and Jazakallah for joining. So my name is Ilham, and I am a trainee clinical psychologist, and I will be delivering today's webinar on accessing support and legal rights in the UK specifically. Just gonna wait for the presentation. It's great. So Samim is helping me with the presentation, and therefore I'll say next slide to direct her to change the slide. So the reason for the presentation is mostly to support people understanding access and access support and legal consideration when they're in contact with inpatient services. I found through my experience to be very important for people to know that, to support themselves and their loved ones. Next slide, please. So just before before we start, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillah tawakkaltu ala Allah wa la hawla la quwwata illa billah. Next slide, please. So I wanted to speak firstly about the importance of knowledge, especially when it comes to legality and accessing services. So we know Islamically knowledge is quite important to us as Muslims, and there are various evidence in the Quran, in Hadith, and as well as Muslim scholar that encourage Muslims to partake and get to know the systems that we operate in. So this is particularly important when you are working within inpatient settings, because when you are not aware of the systems and the teams, as well as the legal rights that you have, you're less likely to support yourself and the ones that you care for. Next slide, please. So just before I start, I wanted to introduce myself and let you know who I am. So I don't know if you noticed, I have a tiny bit of an accent. So I was born in Italy and I moved to the UK, especially London, when I was 14 years old. And I have a total of 7-year experience working with children and adults in various mental health settings. Of those 7 years, I spent 2 years in inpatient settings and worked again both with adults and young people. So I am a trainee clinical psychologist. So most of my work is to do with therapy, and therefore my approach is using cultural and anthropological tools alongside evidence-based research in supporting minoritized and marginalized communities. So I am currently doing and completing my doctorate in clinical psychology. Before my doctorate, I did have various experiences, including completing a undergrad in clinical psychology and a master's in early intervention in psychosis. And in between those degrees, I had various experience, including supporting people with head trauma, supporting people in that have mental health difficulties in the community, and doing outreach workshops in London to support people who are not really aware about mental health, to get support, as well as disseminate psychological knowledge. So currently in my doctorate, I had two of my placements were in inpatient settings, so the knowledge is still quite fresh for me. Unfortunately, I won't be able to give any examples about the people that I have worked with, just because to safeguard the confidentiality and privacy. However, I will try to talk through my experience when explaining some of the concepts. Next slide, please. So, inshallah, by the end of today, everyone will be able to know what kind of admissions are to inpatient settings. And it's particular to the UK. I know that many people are joining from across the world. And hopefully there might be some overlaps as well. And what an admission might look like here. There will be also legalities around discussion around legalities for both the two different types of admissions, and the role of the parents, family members, or carers, as well as their own rights. And then at the end of the webinar, I will be providing some resources and support across mental health services in the UK. As a disclaimer, the presentation only contains general information, and there might be some more specific niche information that are not covered. There will be some time for questions. However, inshallah, I'll try to answer as much as I can and that might cover some of the experiences of other people too. Um, Also, please be mindful of the nature of the presentation when you ask questions, and do not share anything that you will not feel comfortable sharing. Um, I will and I will also focus on adults in this presentation. However, in the Q&A, I can also answer about children too. Next slide, please. So a bit of a icebreaker. If people could please write in the chat, why do you think people get admitted to inpatient services? I think I do have access to the chat, which is great. So we will spend about a minute or so discussing that. Because I want to say there is no wrong answer. So whatever comes to your mind, please write it down. Yeah, so they are a threat to themselves and other people. Thank you. So we have oh, that's so they suffer mental health and need support, medication, and how they need and how need support on how they deal with day-to-day life. Yes, they need support with their mental health, especially their treatment, which is not possible in the community. Yeah, that's great. Risk to society or themselves. Yeah. Yeah, depression, so mental health difficulties, and then when it gets out of their hand, yeah. So, can I can I please move to the next slide, please? Thank you, Jazakallah, for your answers as well. Oh, yeah. So the main reasons I think loads of you have touched upon are around safety. So there might be a danger to themselves or others, but they also might be a danger from other people too. So I had loads of people who were quite vulnerable when they have mental health difficulties, and they might be exploited in the community, and therefore um, they need to be admitted in patients because of that kind of safety as well. There are also severe mental health illnesses or difficulties, which requires treatment to be delivered in the that can be delivered in the community, and therefore it needs to be delivered in inpatient services. And there are also issues with acute crisis. So this will be an event that has destabilized the person, and they need containment in inpatient services. Usually acute crisis take about 2 weeks to kind of settle, and that could be because of an event or and substance misuse difficulty. Then we have also comprehensive assessments, which is in some cases where inpatient care is needed to conduct a thorough assessment of the individual's mental health, medical condition, and social care. And this is to create an effective treatment plan in the community. The reason why I am speaking about the reasons why people get admitted is because for ourselves or for our loved one, it's important to determine the length of stay. So that will mean how long the person is being admitted for. Research and also clinical studies have um, explained that we don't want people to overstay and we don't want people to understay, because if people overstay, then it's harder for them to reintegrate in communities. But also if they understate and the treatment plan, they might not get the accurate or most comprehensive treatment plan too. So it's good for us to know why people are admitted, so you can advocate for the treatment plan as well as not being in inpatient for such a long time. Then we also have this support that you can receive in the inpatient treatment in inpatient settings, and that would tell you who can be responsible for what. So if you're aware that the person is being admitted for a comprehensive assessment, then you can start advocating for that for people, for your loved ones. And then also it can help with understanding the discharge planning. So when are people going to be discharged? And a rule of thumb is whenever people are admitted, discharge planning should start happening as soon as possible. And that's because unfortunately, due to the services resources, it takes some time to get everything across. And therefore it's good to kind of somehow pester professionals into start thinking about discharge from early on. And that's actually in the guidelines as well. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to discuss who you might find in inpatient settings. And this list varies from service to service. Again, from my own experience, children have much more people and disciplines in their team when working in inpatient compared to adults. And some of the people that we work in the team are called a multidisciplinary team, so also known as MDTs. And we have doctors, which can be consultant responsible clinicians. So these are usually the consultant are the people that make decisions around the care. Again, it won't be just themselves. It should be a discussion within the team too, but they do hold that kind of power. And then we have the nursing team, which is mostly composed from RMNs, which are the registered mental health nurses, and support workers, which are there 24/7 in inpatient settings. And they're the people that support individuals on a day-to-day basis. And they are actually the people that know the person the most. We have also clinical psychologists, which are going to be trainees and APs as well. And in some services, there are also family therapists. This is mostly used in children's services, which I found. However, there should be, and again, it does speak quite a lot about the individualistic culture in the UK. However, it's about working with families and supporting families in supporting the person once they're also recovered and in the community. Then we also have other therapies, which include art, music, or occupational therapy. And then we have the managers too. Next slide, please. So there are two types of admission. So the first type of admission is called an informal admission. And these are people who agree to treatment and have different rights compared to the people who are formal admission, also known as sections. And these are people who are not agreeing so much about treatment, but they have been sectioned by the local authorities to be an inpatient based on their safety or need for assessment plan. So when we are talking about informal admission, again, are people that, for example, might be in A&E, and when reviewed by the doctors in A&E, they might agree to go to an inpatient for an assessment or for an acute crisis or for all the reasons that I discussed previously. And they have the following rights compared to the people that are in a section. So they can leave the ward whenever they want to. They also can refuse care and treatment, including medication. And they also have information about the support to make decisions about their care and treatment too. So within informal admissions, when I talk about like leave the ward, everyone gets risk assessed. And I will speak a bit more about it in the next slide. So when we're talking about informal admissions and the framework of rights, informal admissions aren't really restricted under any act per se, unless necessary, and therefore they do not have any different frameworks of rights. Some of the rights that we all have when engaging with mental health services, both in the community and in inpatient, are the following. So I'm sure many of you know about the Human Rights Act, and this includes things like right of life, prohibition from torture, right of a fair trial, freedom of expression, prohibition of discrimination, and so on. So everyone should adhere under the Human Rights Act. There is also a duty of care when you're when you're in contact with mental health services. And this refers to the legal and professional obligation to keep others safe and safeguard them whilst they're known to us. And this is not only for the people that we work with directly, so the service users or patients or clients, but it does extend to the families too. So, for example, when I worked with an adult who was in inpatient services, and I was aware that someone in their family was actually weren't really safe in their home environment, we had to intervene because of a safeguarding of the adult too, and that comes under the duty of care. Then we also have code of conduct. So every profession should have it, and I put some of the main ones. So the NMC is for the nursing colleagues, the BPS is for the psychologist, and the RCP is for the psychiatrist. But basically, it discusses how ethically we should approach people's care and different ethical consideration on how we work with people. And when it comes to the inpatient setting in particular, we have the CQC, which is an independent health regulator, and they investigate the quality of care for each UK kind of inpatient. And what they do is to come in and check that everything is carried properly, and there should be no unethical issues. And then everyone in inpatient setting should have a right to an independent advocate. So these are people who are not part of the service or the trust, and they usually are part of a third sector organization or charity, and they are supporting the service users in inpatient to appeal things or to discuss their rights, or if they don't feel very comfortable or confident discussing their treatment with professionals, they can use the independent advocate to speak for them and advocate for them. And within informal admissions, they also have responsibility when they are informal. And the responsibility includes engagement, and that will be with the team and the treatment plan. In inpatient settings, there are things like a timetable that people usually follow with activities or groups, and therefore engagement in that sense. And then also with ward policies. So, for example, if they were to leave, they will also have to return from leave, and that will be a responsibility for the informal patient. Can I move to the next slide, please? Perfect. So when we are thinking about leaving the ward with informal patients in particular, although every single door in the ward is locked for the safety of the patients, informal patients can ask staff to open the door and leave. But before they leave, they undergo a risk assessment. And the risk assessment includes questions around what you're going to be doing on your leave, how long you're going to stay, who will be there with you, and this is usually conducted by nurses to kind of investigate whether there should be any worry about the safety or safety of other people. However, again, because staff has duty of care, they can stop the person from leaving if they're worried. And there might be reason for a mental health act or a mental health capacity act if in certain occasions, not always, but in certain occasions, if the discussion with the service users, if the service users really disagreed with, I need to leave. I will speak about the Mental Health Capacity Act and Mental Health Act in more detail later on, but the difference between the two is one, it's regarding sectioning. So if they are afraid of their safety, they might need to section the person for treatment. Or they might be, if they're afraid of the decision making around the person's ability of decision making, they might have to use the Mental Capacity Act. Next slide, please. So when we are thinking about the rights to make decisions about their own treatment, we will have to consider the mental health capacity again. So people should be able to know how the person is informal and they have capacity to decide to be in hospital and have treatment. However, mental health difficulties mean that they cannot make certain decisions, and that is a case-to-case discussion. I'm not sure if everyone can still see the slides. I lost them. Perfect, thank you. Jazakallah. Perfect. Yes, so we were talking about the rights to make decisions about their own treatment. And again, it will consider the mental capacity of the person. And if the person is informal, they have the capacity to be in hospital and have treatment. However, if the mental health difficulties deteriorate, then I won't be able to make decisions about their own treatment. And again, the Mental Health Capacity Act might be used. This is very much, from my experience, I think just one person in the 2 years I've worked in services, but it will involve several conversations with family members and carers. And I will go on to explain that more in detail in terms of like the guidelines surrounding mental health in patient settings. So next slide, please. So here I'm going to really briefly, I know that's a lot of text, briefly discuss the differences between Mental Health Act and Mental Capacity Act. They're very similar in name, which makes it very, very hard to differentiate. But one is about sectioning people, which means that they are now under compulsion for compulsory detention, assessment, and treatment. And it's usually used in inpatient settings. Therefore, they will be treated against their will. When we're saying treated against their will, there should not be the case of giving a medication without the will of the person. Conversation, again, services are moving on to a least restrictive practice, and therefore they should never inject people if there is no reason for that, or they should never be forced any kind of medication in that sense. But when I talk about treatment, it's mostly like being an inpatient, and legally you have to stay in that inpatient until we finish the assessment or the treatment. So I just wanted to confirm that. And the decision making is mostly done by professional. Again, discussion with family members and carers and people around them are really much highly encouraged, because again, Professionals know the person up to a certain point, but family members know them for much longer. It might involve regular reviews, and they also have the right to appeal the section, and that would mean that they will go through a mental health tribunal, which is kind of similar to going. It's basically going to a judge and explaining why you shouldn't be sectioned or shouldn't be in an inpatient and should be in the community instead. And every person, it typically applies to cases with severe mental health difficulties where immediate action is necessary. When we are thinking about the Mental Capacity Act, it's more about the person unable to make the decisions for themselves. And that is due to mental health conditions like severe mental health conditions, for example, psychosis to a certain point. Not everyone in psychosis that has psychosis goes under the Mental Health Capacity Act, but certain people that really severe might need to the act might be needed to be used, or people that have dementia or other neurological conditions too. And that provides a decision-making framework for decisions based on behalf of the individual who lack the mental capacity to make the decisions themselves. And this can include decisions about the healthcare, decisions about the finances, and living arrangements. It can be done both in inpatient and community, and there might be a need for detention, but that will be under the deprivation of liberty, which is also known as DOLS, which is similar to what a mental health act would be. But again, it's based on the fact that the person can't consent for treatment because they are not looking at their own best interest. And the best interest decisions made by professional on behalf of the person should always be in consideration of the person's wishes, present, past, and discussions about their life and their carers and family members too should be taken in consideration. The Act also includes safeguards like requirements for capacity assessment and being able to challenge it in court too. Can we move to the next slide? I know it's a lot of information, and I apologize. I'll try to go as quickly as possible so we have enough time for questions. This is another type of admission, and that will be the sectioned admissions. Again, they're under the Mental Health Act. And the first kind of admission is the Section 2, which is the detention for assessment. And it's the first kind of section that the person will get if they are an inpatient. And it's about 28 days. We'll need about 2 doctors, 1 mental health approved professional. In some emergency cases, they only need 1 doctor. And that would lead to either the person being sectioned for a Section 3 or the section being cancelled, being informal, or going back to the community. The next section will be Section 3. In the next slide, please. So that is the section for treatment. So the treatment can last up to 6 months, after which it can be renewed. Usually we don't want people to stay for a very long period of time, and people can also be in Section 3 for less than 6 months. And again, it might involve multiple professionals for the person to be sectioned, and professional must think the best for the individual and interest when we are thinking about the treatment and being held for treatment as well. The other section in the next slide, please, are Section 5.2, and this is a temporary holding power. So when I spoke about leave, for example, so if the person wants to leave the hospital and is informal, for example, they would, and professionals are afraid for their safety, professionals have the right to temporarily hold the person up to 72 hours. And then it could be either being on a section 2, a section 3, or informal. And then we have section 5.4, and that will be the nursing holding power. Nurses are there 24/7, and therefore they might need to use this power when there are not doctors or clinicians available, usually outside of working hours. And it's very similar to section 5.2, is when they feel that the person is not cannot wants to leave, but they're informal, and therefore they need to make the decision in the spot to section them. And the section is only for 6 hour maximum until a doctor, a duty doctor, a clinician, or anyone can use their own power to section the look at the sectioning or making the person informal. The next slide, please. So key points around the informal sectioning admission is that people can move between informal and section depending on the safety and discretion of the professional, and also discussion with family, friends and carers. Professionals should always be able to provide the reasons for sectioning, and that's very important because when considering the power dynamic that comes into inpatient services, and they should explain it to the person involved in particular. Individuals are always allowed to appeal for the section, and they can use what we call an independent advocate to support with that. And once they appeal, they will go through a mental health tribunal where a judge, which is not part of the trust or the board, will make the decision on whether the person should keep on the section, should be kept in the section, or be informal, or being discharged. That's great, thank you. So I'm just aware of time. I'm going to go through the what about family and friends, and I wanted to discuss most in particular about the importance of language and what we use. So you might be one of these or all of these, but it's very important for you to know which one to use and when to use it. And each one of these kind of titles holds different powers. So when we're talking about carers, we're talking mostly about family members who often provide unpaid support and assistance to someone who has a mental health condition, and they help with daily activities like emotional support and things like that. Similarly, we have a next of kin, and it's the closing living relative, and for the person to be contacted in case of emergency or significant events such as medical conditions or legal matters. This is mostly used when it comes to medical procedures. So if someone needs to go through a surgery, the next of kin should be contacted. Not so much with mental health difficulties. And therefore, the next of kin does not have automatically legal authority to know about the person's sections, or know about their treatment, or know about the individual's kind of informations that are shared within the team. What is best to be used in case of in inpatient settings is the nearest relative. And this is a legal term, particularly used in mental health law, referring to a specifically family member who has a certain right and responsibility regarding the care and treatment for someone who has a mental health condition. The nearest relative is often determined by a hierarchy, and this is set by law. And therefore, they might start with the spouse, then go with children, then goes with siblings, and so on. I will explain that more in detail later. And they have the right to know about what's going on in treatment, if the person gets sectioned, if the person is being discharged, and so on. Okay, next slide, please. So there are many rights that come into that protects carers in particular. We have the equality right, which protects from discrimination and associative discrimination. So if associative meaning that you know someone that can be discriminated based on the mental health. We also have the Carers Act that helps understanding and supporting the person that cares for someone who has a mental health difficulty, and give them support through the care system. social system. And then we have the Children and Family Act, which is usually a provision for carers of children. And we have the Employment Act, which is the protection for carers in the workplace. And that includes special leave or flexible working hours and so on. And these are all rights protected for carers. Next slide, please. And so for what we know in terms of rights for carers in terms of the loved ones treatment, we know that from research is that involving carers is very, very important in terms of the outcomes and improvement in symptoms for people that we work with. And therefore, it's very much encouraged, especially in psychological, considering psychological models in terms of involving the community and the system around the person in supporting them with the mental health journey. And similarly, if we are looking at a cultural view, and cultural research has shown that treatment should be culturally informed. And if someone is from a collectivist culture, having that family member being involved, it will hugely support their recovery. We also know that in terms of NICE guidelines, that carers and families should be involved at all stages of therapies, and that includes both medical and psychological. However, this is again, the adult might change, and it depends on the adults that we are treating and their consent. So therefore, what we do in inpatient services and what ethically should be done is that we explain the person that we work with, the importance of involving parents and obtaining consent from the person to divulge certain information. And this is, however, the service user can deny that, and therefore we won't be able to share anything based on the confidentiality and privacy of the person. However, this should be reviewed every time we have a conversation with the service user. This is because family and relationship change, and there are different dynamics, and therefore we should be able to change every time something there is a different outcome for the person. Again, all relatives, independent of whether the service user wants or doesn't want, has the right to share the information with professional. Okay, so we might not be able to share information with you based on the person, but if you feel like an information is really needed for professionals to be aware, go ahead. It will be actually really much supported by professional to share the information with them. Next slide, please. So when we are talking about the rights of the nearest relative, which is the most important when it comes to sections or someone being an informal patient, it's the nearest relative. And here I have a list of how the nearest relative comes down in terms of set by law. So the first person that will be the nearest relative, if you were to go to an inpatient setting, will be your husband, your wife, or your civil partner. And they have the right to renounce that by writing a letter and renounce the title, and it will go down to the person below in the list, and therefore a son or a daughter, or both. So if there are two people that can be the nearest relative, in this case with your children, the oldest person will be coming first, and carers and people who live with the person are also more likely to be the nearest relative again. But it's very much set by law, and unfortunately, I think services can't do much about that. But you can talk with the person who is set by law to renounce the title if you're the next person in line. Next slide, please. And in terms of the rights for that you can use as a nearest relative is right to ask for an assessment if you think that the person should be sectioned and they are not safe in the community. You can also apply for an admission in hospital, and they don't need to section in that way. They can do it informally. And I would really much recommend going informal rather than sectioning, just because we know that a lot of people who are from Black and ethnic minorities are more likely to be sectioned, and it's sectioned with the police. And if the person doesn't really agree, it's a really traumatic experience. So if you apply for admission to hospital, it's much more smoother. You can get certain information, again, although not absolute, about the diagnosis, treatment, and care about the person. And you can consult, it can be consulted by the approved mental health professional when they are trying to look at whether the person should be on a section or not. They can also, nearest relative can also not be told about the detention under Section 2 or Section 3 if that would have a negative effect on the service user. However, again, this should be recorded, the reason why they were not involved in the decision making. However, another right, or I guess power that the nearest relative has, is that they have they can also subject to a Section 3, so therefore detention for treatment. It can't go ahead if the nearest relative disagrees. But again, it does. I haven't really seen that in my practice. That might speak to maybe nearest relative not knowing that they have that power. But also because conversation with the consultant, which is the responsible clinician, might be had with the nearest relative, and therefore an agreement can be made. They can ask for people to be discharged. They can ask, and they should be given if someone gets discharged, they should be given a 7-day notice as well. They can delegate the right to someone else, and they can be told about the renewal of detention, and so on. And they can also contact the independent mental health advocacy service, which is they advocate for people who are in inpatient settings. Next slide, please. So we're coming to an end. I just wanted to let you know that I also included some organization that can help get your head around like the legality of inpatient services. It's a lot, and I think it took me quite a long time to understand it properly, but these are great links and accessible links to get the information that you need. And in the next slide, we also have some resources for you to go through in understanding a bit more about, again, legality, or what are human rights, and so on. That is the end. I think I'm 2 minutes over.
Thank you, Ilham. Alhamdulillah. We will resume with Q&A at 1 o'clock, so you can have a bit of a little break. Thank you for that fantastic legal section, and we will, inshallah, start with Q&A in the next minute. So I'm going to introduce Sadia from GRT. She's going to give you some very exciting news. So yeah, Sadia, are you on?
Right. Firstly, Jazakallah khair, Ilham, for that amazing information. Like, that's such valuable information. Alhamdulillah. So, assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm Sadia from Global Relief Trust, and I have a very exciting announcement. So, GRT and QI bring you. Actually, you know what? Let me let you hear it for yourself, inshallah. Let's go. Bismillah. You can see my screen? Yeah?
Yeah, we can see it. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum, my dear sisters. We are here today at the beautiful Botanical Gardens, and we have some exciting news for you. GRT, in collaboration with Quranic Insights, bring to you our unique and long-awaited Sisters-Only Mental Health Conference. We will be joined by a panel of experts who will be covering a wide range of topics in relation to mental health, from holistic well-being to spirituality. So we welcome you all to join us on these beautiful grounds for an inspiring and unforgettable experience. Book your tickets now before they're all gone. Assalamu alaikum.
So, alhamdulillah, we've taken your feedback on board. we've seen the success of these webinars, and alhamdulillah, we've seen how much it's truly helped all of you and helped, like give you all the information that you're looking for, and talk about this topic which doesn't get talked about enough. So we've seen how much it's truly meant to you all, and alhamdulillah, we're very excited to bring you Resilient Minds. So this will be our first in-person conference held at Birmingham's beautiful Botanical Gardens. Inshallah, on the day, we will be joined by all of the webinar leads that you've heard from in the past couple of months, and more, inshallah. And also there will be organizations there that, provide a range of services. So you'll also have access to them. You can speak to them, inshallah. We've seen the community that, alhamdulillah, we've built here, and we really want to meet you all in person and give you all the chance to meet each other in, a safe space and a safe environment. So inshallah, we're so excited to bring this in-person webinar to in-person conference to you, inshallah, on the 2nd of November in Birmingham. So today the tickets will actually go live, and you know what, they'll probably sell out very, very fast. So inshallah, try and get your tickets as soon as possible. We've posted the registration link in the comments below. And and honestly, guys, it's being held at Birmingham Botanical Gardens. That costs £8 just to enter into, and alhamdulillah, you'll have access to the entire gardens, including your tickets for the entire day. So inshallah, get your tickets soon, and we look forward to meeting you also, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. I'm going to hand it back to Samim and Ilham for the Q&A segment.
Assalamu alaikum, Sadia. Thank you so much for that. Just going to reiterate, book your tickets now. I'm going to put my camera on. Sorry, let me just get this technical. Oh, assalamu alaikum. Here I am. Yes. Alhamdulillah, like Sadia said, the feedback was absolutely immense, and we had to make sure that we listen to the community, and then an in-house face-to-face conference. So do book your ticket, share with friends and families. So inshallah, you get a good, get to meet the panel members, the webinar members, and each like-minded person will be there, inshallah. So we're gonna continue with Q&A. So Eva, some of you can, if you want, I'm going to throw this out there, can come on off mute and ask the question to Ilham, or you can type on the legalities. Ilham, any kind of advice besides obviously the PowerPoint? We'll wait for the cute question and answer questions to come through. Very technical, wasn't it? That
Yeah, I apologize for that.
No,
So
no,
it must
no.
been a lot of questions.
I personally feel, when we were discussing this and putting these webinars together, I personally feel this technical side is needed. We are so not educated as a community, because we only approach stuff as and when it happens. I think sometimes it's good to have this knowledge just in case. And we know mental health is a taboo subject in the Muslim domain. We know that. So I feel like if we know the technicalities and we're educated, maybe at this point in time, it may not go in because it is a lot of technical, acts and stuff to get through. However, the people being on here may think, oh, hang on, something's happened in my life or my friends or whatever. I heard this, let me go and refer back to it. So it's always good to have that, I personally feel. I don't know what your take on it is.
No, definitely. I think in my experience when working with minoritized community in particular, because there is not much of that knowledge, people aren't able to support their loved one as much as they wanted to. And very, very unfortunately, and I do blame a lot of services, knowledge is not being given. In fact, they won't let you know most of the things. Or they will give you a very difficult kind of leaflet or information, and those conversations are not really had with the family and the person affected. So I agree, knowledge is power, and therefore knowing about the legalities, although they're very, very hard, and I really validate the difficulties around that, is it's a power, it's a tool that you can use to support your loved ones. And sometimes, and I'm very unfortunately, statistically speaking, minorities are more likely to be not explained, also being sectioned, being going through these very traumatic experiences when it comes to mental health services, and therefore knowing about it. You can advocate for your loved ones, you can support them, you can get people accountable. Once you get professionals accountable, you see that change happening. And again, I'm not saying that everyone is very bad in mental health, but it's very strained, and therefore you need to chase people up about the care, which is very unfortunate, but it's the reality. So yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to bring it back to what you just said. The minorities are statemented. Why is that? So that's quite interesting. Why is that? So in obviously statistically, we're talking factual now. We're
Yeah,
not
of course.
making this up. So there's a disclaimer. We're actually
Mhm.
factual. Why are minorities then? Because I know we've had this comment and I still can't get it around my head. So why are
Yeah.
go for it. Why are minorities
I
section?
think it's yeah. I mean, unfortunately, it speaks quite a lot about the institutionalized racism that
Yeah.
are within mental health settings. Although they say, and everyone tries to be anti-racist and trauma-informed, and all of these things being spoken about, it's very sad to come across these statistics, but also it's the reality. So because of the racism, because of the dehumanization of Black and brown people, people are less likely to subconsciously give them the information. Again, people are less likely to have the access to that knowledge as well. So I think these webinars are great because you provide the access to people without needing to pay or go and look for it somewhere else.
Yeah.
And therefore, I think that's really, really helpful to combat these access issues. However, again, it's a lot to do with the institutionalized racism that comes into mental health services, especially in inpatient, and that's unfortunately the case.
So are you seeing the changes happening? I know they're very slow changes because we're quite behind
Mhm.
from changing the narrative, right? From a
Mhm.
viewpoint from the ethnic minorities, from the Islamic stance and everything like that.
Yeah.
Are you, because I've seen, alhamdulillah, through these webinars and with Rabia, our global ambassadors, with Henna, Aisha, and everybody on our panel who will be at the conference, inshallah, I've seen a growth, I've seen a movement, should I say, and a growing kind of movement of a lot of Muslim, colored background, ethnic minorities coming into psychology, coming into this. And it's kind of exciting because we are so behind, but we're seeing the likes of your young self, actually committing to this and actually being that change that we want to be. So are you seeing my question is, are you seeing the changes? Is it a quick change or is it a very slow kind of, do we need more people to get involved in this field to make sure that we are not getting statemented straight away and we do have access and we're not doing the, institutionalized racism and so forth, So what is your kind of opinion and take on this?
Yeah, I mean, the change is painfully slow, unfortunately. There is some change, and I'm trying to be also not really negative as well. But as you said, there are more minorities coming to psychology, which is great. And what I've seen in terms of my experience is that minorities are more likely to advocate for other minorities too, just because we are able to empathize with others based on our experiences as well, personal experiences, or just the empathy, even just within Islam and the value of caring for the oppressed. We will be advocating, and therefore I definitely have supported a lot service users to tell them, well, you can appeal your section if you disagree. So that should be definitely having those discussions. I also think there should be more people joining psychology, and there should be more conversations, more people coming to jobs to support others, because unfortunately a lot of the people that are in position of power are less likely to be minorities,
Right, that's
and therefore it makes the change very difficult. but also there might be also minorities that hold that internalized racism as well, and therefore are not advocating for people. And therefore, I think there is a element of really being passionate and valuing the work that you're doing and advocating for the people, making sure that all their rights are being given. And something that I had as a my master's, a lecturer told me that you should treat everyone that you are working with as if you want a professional to treat your family member. And that stuck with me because I always do that. I always try to think, well, if that was my brother that was in inpatient, I would make sure to support them and the best that I can and get them all the information and get the information to their family members too.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. Well, I'm sure in a couple of years' time we'll see you at the top in the
Inshallah.
decision making, inshallah. So I've got a few questions, so inshallah we'll carry on this conversation. So I say assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Wa alaikum assalam. Alhamdulillah, a very informative session. I've been helping a friend, a neighbor, on and off for the past 15 years. She has been complaining of being ignored and looked at as insignificant, treated as a number and not as a human being. What would you say? What advice would you give to that, or your professional?
Yeah, Jazakallah for the question. And I think this experience often resonate with a lot of people, unfortunately, being really ignored and not validated in terms of this the difficulties. Services will often use the say of we are, and it's true as well, that there are long waiting lists, they're overwhelmed and things like that, and therefore these things end up happening. However, it doesn't really of this excuse that the person feels this way. My advice would be to get in touch with the local services. It depends on their difficulties. However, when it comes to first line treatment will be the GP. So get in touch with the GP, and if the GP seems to be ignoring the difficulties, there are also self-referral, some of the IAPT, which is I don't know what they stand for. I forgot what they stand for. I think it's the I don't know. If you look at IAPT, it will be the first line of talking therapy, and some of the IAPT within certain boroughs that allow self-referral. So you can self-refer for an assessment. It might be again that longer waiting list.
Right.
However, you already started having that discussions and being in the system. I think getting in the system is very hard as well.
Right.
And it's based on the fact that they are overwhelmed, but also they seem to be dismissing a lot from people too. So I would say try to support the person as much as you can by either helping them with the appointment with the GP and advocating for them, or helping them filling in the referral form with for the IAPT services.
Okay, inshallah. Just persevere, I would say. Just keep on knocking on them doors. And
Yes,
you know,
definitely.
it sometimes is the case of just knocking on them doors. I think sometimes you've got to be seen and heard at the same time, not just seen. So inshallah, may Allah make it easy for your neighbor, inshallah. And it's a good thing that she's got such a friend that actually is advocated, another advocate, to be honest, advocated.
Yeah.
So Gornava, I just completed my bachelor in psychology, but truthfully, I feel that I am not ready to go into the real world. These are the questions we had. Remember when we had the group of psychologists meeting? It was quite interesting. So I'm going to refer. So I'm not ready to go into the real world. What steps should I take next to be able to offer contribution or support properly? Interesting.
I think, well, I'm not sure the reason why you might not feel able to get into the real world, and you don't need to share. But I think if I got the question right, and please let me know if I don't, I think if it gets to a point of, I guess, building that confidence into supporting other people. I personally have done loads of volunteering in my early stages, and what I've done is you learn a lot from others that you work with, but also a lot from the people that you support. And you do end up building this amazing therapeutic relationship with others that will give you that confidence to get into the real world, but also gives you more of that motivation and I guess that value to support others, because you will always remember the first person that you supported and gave you that good feedback or that smile, and that can actually increase increase your confidence and motivation to get to the real world.
Inshallah. It's just I like Ilham and I say, we don't know your full story, but build that confidence around like-minded people, you know. And I'm not trying to sell here, but I am. During the conference, we're going to have like-minded people or whatever. So if you can come, honestly, that should be or could be your first step, and come and see us. And inshallah, you don't know where we can take it from, you know.
Yeah, and I think also start with the communities that are close to you.
Yeah.
So start with slow steps. Don't get into ready like to apply for a job somewhere that you're not sure. I think it's get to the people that you know and the community, and I think just maybe support your local mosque about doing something, or yeah, things like that, or come to the conference.
Yeah. Come to the conference, but don't give up.
Yeah.
Don't give up, inshallah.
Please do.
Yeah, and there'll be inshallah many webinars, so just keep on building your
Yeah.
confidence as such. And next one, Assalamu alaikum, amazing session. What would you advise for someone who wants to become a psychologist or psychotherapist as a second career? We are the roots for this. Don't know what the last parts, but no, I think it means where are the roots, or what are the roots for this? Sorry, I beg your pardon. So yeah.
So from my understanding is it depends on the degree that you have. So if you have a undergrad degree as something else, you can do a conversion degree, which is I think a year or two, depending on whether you want to take it part-time or full-time. And that kind of acts as a master degree, and that kind of helps into starting applying for volunteering experiences or support somewhere else. I think there are many avenues to become a psychologist. I can really speak about clinical psychology. I don't know much about psychotherapist, but in terms of becoming a psychologist, that's usually you need to have a degree as a basis if you want to get into the doctor. But if you want to be also a therapist, that is very much needed. There are many routes, but I would say, yeah, get that conversion degree and try to get as much experience as you can. And the experience varies. You don't need to do therapy on the get-go. My first experience was volunteering in a head trauma service charity, and I used to just really much engage with people. I would sit with the clients and play games with them, and you would learn a lot from that. And yeah, I think that will be it. I think as much experience as you can and get that conversion degree.
Inshallah, all the best, inshallah.
And
also,
all best.
Okay, next one. Also, how can a close family and loved ones support someone who doesn't have much insight into their condition or declines treatment? This is a biggie. This is what we've had repeating. So not just here, but generally when we were researching about this webinar. So yeah, how can you?
Yeah. So my first thought when it came to that question was what would services say? It would be around sectioning. So if you are really afraid for their safety, but I'm much more of around let's try to avoid that as a first option. I don't know how much lack of insight or declining treatment, and how much I think severe is the mental health difficulty. I would say I would say try to get them involved into. Unfortunately, when it comes to our communities, people don't believe that they need that support because they don't believe that mental health is real or it's important or and unfortunately, I think Rabia did speak about it on the first seminar. It was because of what happened historically. But mental health is very much real. Mental health is recognized also Islamically. And therefore, I think getting those conversations going at the start, if that's the issue, if they again persist, I will try to get the support from services. But also just try to be very much aware around avoiding those traumatic experiences because we don't want someone to get very, very unwell where they are outside and the police needs to be involved because that's even more traumatic than getting them through the GP and have those conversations. So try to avoid any kind of, I think, traumatizing experience, but you should start having those conversations if you think that they are not agreeing to treatment because they feel like they have certain thoughts about mental health. Yeah, but again, I can't speak 100% about it because I don't know the full story.
The story behind
I
the
hope that
conference.
answered the
Yeah.
question.
No. One more last one, and then we're going to wrap it up, inshallah. Salams, I've just finished my 1-year course with Beacon Trust based in London. We are under an organization called AIMS. The approach is a solution focus, which we like solution focus, don't we? Again, my question is, how do I put myself forward as I really do want to help in the community? I think it goes back to the volunteer, getting the experience. So how would you answer that, Ilham?
So from my understanding, this person is already in the trust. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think I would suggest it's a blend of confidence, but I would also I also think there should be also a support system around the person in building that confidence as well. So if you have someone that is close to you in the trust, either a supervisor or a colleague that can support you putting forward those claims, it can help with that confidence. Yeah, I would say if you have any, I would say start by delivering trainings or anything that you're passionate about, speak about it. It can also start with those small conversations with the team, and they will definitely appreciate a different view than their one. And I think when it comes to younger people or new people joining the psychology field, they really much appreciate the different views as well.
Yeah. Okay. Very quickly question. I'm gonna kind of I think Avita's asked a question, and you've literally got, unfortunately, a few minutes to just answer. She goes, she said, where is she? What can you do? And Avita, I would like you, we're gonna put a number on the chat in a minute. We've got a big WhatsApp group for mental health, and we're going to put in all our webinars and presentation. What I would like you to do, Avita, is look at our very first webinar that will inshallah answer your question to this, but I'm going to get Ilham to give her opinion also. So what you can do, say, okay, what can you do if they force you to stop with your Islam reline and say Islam is the cause of the problems, and your family involved and work with company for mental health who want assimilating from your faith? So this is a young lady who's a revert. So how would you, because I know that our very first webinar were through the Islamic lens, so you will find that really, really beneficial, inshallah. But I'm going to get Ilham to give you a few tips on this, inshallah.
Yeah. So if I got the question right, and please correct me if I didn't, it's the sister here is being told by services that Islam is the cause of her problems.
That's what it's
and
saying,
yeah, they want her to basically not be Muslim anymore.
Yeah.
So first of all, that's against the Human Rights Act, and you have the right to follow whatever decision, whatever religion and belief you have. If I think it comes first of all to the duty of the services to get themselves informed and understand person's belief systems before they can make a claim like this. I would say I think it again goes back to that confidence and having that knowledge that what they're saying to you, it's actually it shouldn't be said, and it's a prohibition of your rights of not being Muslim. But again, I would say that yeah, there are many ways that you can get support even through the Islamic lens if you don't want services to be involved as well. So there are I don't have them on top of my head. However, there are counseling services, but psychotherapists based on Islamic perspective. And there are many other charities that hopefully I'll make sure to pass them to Samim so she can disseminate it to everyone else with the PowerPoint that you can use to discuss the difficulties that you have. And those charities and those people actually don't believe that Islam is the cause of the problem. In fact, it's very much the opposite. Islam often it's a protective factor, especially with the people that I worked with, is that it gives you that value to carry on with life and knowing that this dunya, unfortunately, is very much of a test. And yeah.
Okay. One last question, Ilham, and you've got 60 seconds because I know we have to wrap up and I've got to do it. Alhamdulillah, they're all coming in now thick and fast. It's just like, okay. Is therapy okay to do as a Muslim? And my therapist is unfortunately a man. Would you recommend to change to a female?
I think that's up to you and how comfortable you are. I think when it comes to therapy, people shouldn't be crossing any boundary as a therapist, especially. However, you have every single right to change the gender of the therapist that you have. If you feel that a woman might be more understanding of your difficulties, there are many therapists that are women. In fact, we are 90% women compared to the 10% of men. So you can definitely get it changed, and it's up to on your own right to do that. In fact, I'm sure that they won't even be upset about that. They would be very understanding if they're actually a good therapist too. So that yeah, you can ask if you're feeling uncomfortable around it, but I don't see any. Hopefully, there shouldn't be any boundaries crossing there.
Ilham, thank you so very much. Alhamdulillah for you. Alhamdulillah for everybody who joined and your technical kind of, experience and your guidance on this. I'm sure we will be talking more, and inshallah, we will be seeing you a lot more across the mental health program and obviously at the conference. I'm going to wrap up with a few more, so please stay on. Don't just go. So in the chat section at the moment, alhamdulillah, we have come to an end of a 5-part series of mental health. The 5th part is the face-to-face conference in Birmingham, inshallah. Hoping to see most of you there. Come and say hello or salams or whatever you want to say to us. What we've done in the chat is we put an evaluation form. Please do fill it out. Inshallah, this will help us to gain more information. And then in future, we can actually put on more webinars, free webinars, conferences or whatever to meet the needs of the community around mental health. So please, I would say, look at it, get some time behind you and actually really think about what you're filling in and how you would like to fill it in or what you would like to say. Please do that. And it's got links there. So do please. And if anybody has missed this webinar, and family and friends have come to the previous, do share these links with them too. The other thing I want to mention is in London, alhamdulillah, from Sisters Henna's grief webinar, she is now doing a face-to-face therapy session in our London office every month. end of every month. So we're putting the poster here in October. It's called the Salam Cafe, and it's to have a session, people who are dealing with grief. So do register for that, and it's absolutely free. So there is a waiting list, so do put your names. Inshallah, as the months go by, we will look at the waiting list, so do that. The other thing is, last words from you, Ilham, before I close.
Yeah, I mean, Jazakallah for everyone attending, and I really encourage everyone to come to the conference, and I will be I'll be very happy to meet some of you in person too. So it would be great. If everyone could come.
Perfect. And so we've got a few people will share the Salam Cafe poster on the chat and the link. Inshallah, do please join our WhatsApp group. With the WhatsApp group, you will be informed about up and coming events around mental health. I've got another big news for you. Inshallah, in the next coming months, because we've done these 5 webinars, the 5-part series for women, we're inshallah looking at doing it for men also, because men also, again, we're coming away from the taboo subjects. We want to introduce mental health in for men too, and the support systems there. Alhamdulillah, from these webinars, we have been asked to provide webinars for men too, and it's so refreshing to see people asking for these kind of things. Alhamdulillah. So with no further ado, inshallah, see you all at the conference. I hope to see you all at the conference. Do please fill out the evaluation form. Do please join our WhatsApp group. Have a beautiful, blessed Sunday, and keep us in your du'as, and continue talking about mental health, continue healing with mental health. It's not a taboo subject. There is support systems out there, and reach out and don't suffer in silence. That's what I'm going to say. May Allah bless, shower his love, light and his mercy over humanity, and give shifa to those who are sick physically, mentally and spiritually. And those who have come to this, may this part be start of a healing for you in the right way, inshallah. And you guys, nobody is alone. Just remember that Allah is always with us, but Allah has always given access to services for us to use too. So make the most of it, and do reach out to any of us, inshallah, if you do feel that you need some more help. So, and inshallah, see you at the conference. Have a blessed Sunday. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum, Ilham. Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
Bye bye.